Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. In today's segment of Reportage, I am joined by former Congress spokesperson Mr. Sanjay Jha to talk about his recently released book 2024 India in Free Fall, which is published by HarperCollins. The book talks about the period in India from 2019 to 2024. More from the author. Mr. Jha, you start your book with an incident from London when you have to catch the train to London and you meet this driver or a taxi driver. Incidentally, he is a Muslim and that too from Gujarat. It just clicked my mind and want to ask you. You have been vocal about saying that the Congress party just trashed this Gujarat incident under the carpet. What led to the party? Why they did fail to especially take up this matter? And you said this was a matter on which the opposition could have rather criticized Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Danish, in my opinion, the Gujarat 2002 genocide, I would not even call it a communal riot, is a blot in our entire, political history. It's really a stigma in our, understanding of a secular democracy. I felt that there was a period after 2014 when the UPA and the Congress lost the elections, that there were many people in the party that became very defensive. People failed to realize that, what is wrong. A public verdict in favor of the BJP and Mr. Modi did not mean that the issues on which they were challenged aggressively by the Congress between 2002 and 2014 had diminished, or the intensity or shall we say the depth of the allegations, they hadn't vanished. So, end of day, you look at the difference, right? It was, in my opinion, an opportunity for the Congress, even after 2014, to stand up for what was wrong. What happened in Gujarat was wrong. It was something that we should all hang our collective heads together on. In complete and deep acute shame. But I felt that a lot of people in the Congress party felt that, polarization doesn't work politically. But this was not about politics. This was about standing up for, a proper humanitarian cause. And
On the other hand, this is what BJP does, polarize people to garner votes.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, right? Danish, what an irony that the Congress party stopped reminding people after 2014 about the February 2002 violence and the pogroms of 2002. But the BJP every year kept reminding the people of India, you should watch their social media in particular, of 1984. Look at the way the BJP went after the Congress for the horrific 1984 massacre as well, which I think is a pertinent point, but they, of course, did it for only political purposes. But the Congress got so weak-kneed, mealy-mouthed, and reticent that I thought it showed a lack of character and spine. And that, to me, was extremely disappointing.
I will come to the Congress party in a bit. But first to your second chapter. In the second chapter, you write about Pawan Khera, how he was arrested from deep land at one of the Delhi airports, if I'm not wrong. Tell me this, how bad is it for a democracy to put the opposition leaders in jail?
Danish, let me tell you that today we do not have democracy in our country. I think we fool ourselves. We live in a completely fool's paradise, or we are hallucinating if we believe that India is a democracy. India is not a democracy. Yes, we are having elections, but we all know who controls the election commission today. Right now, just because you have elections doesn't make a democracy happen. Why do you think people are calling us an elected autocracy or a democratically elected dictatorship or an illiberal democracy? There's a reason behind that. That today there is fear in our society. There is hate being spread every day. So, my short answer is, Pawan Khera was arrested. He was literally taken off the airplane. I mean, you're doing that to, my former colleague who I know he was only making a witty remark, which, by the way, the BJP utters horrendous language, right? I mean, the Prime Minister called the Congress manifesto a Muslim League. and that is okay by the election commission, right? That is not using religious polarization. But if Pawan Khera cracked a little, sarcastic quip on Modi and Gautam Adani, he was going to be arrested, or he was arrested finally. Eventually, he got his bail, etc. But the larger point, Arvind Kejriwal is in jail today, Danish. And he's on jail uh, based on an accusation made by an approver who was earlier the kingpin of the scam, who gives 55 crores to the BJP. So what we are witnessing, Danish, is some kind of we are watching a Netflix or a Hotstar, some kind of a web series here. Mr. Modi and his government believes they can do what they want and they will get away with it.
Chapter after chapter, you have scanned the Modi government's last 10 years, especially from 2019 to 2024 in this book. In chapter 6, you talk about the MSP and how that was mishandled. I wonder, why still people vote for BJP? What is it? What makes them vote for BJP?
Can I be honest? I think, Danish, the role of the big media, and by that I mean mainstream television, has been critical. Think about it, that for 10 years, every day across Hindi and English channels, all people hear about is how bad the opposition is. 10 years after being in government, all Narendra Modi and the BJP talk about is where the Congress may have gone wrong in 2008 or 2012 or during the time of Pandit Nehru. I mean, how absurd, atrocious, and completely ludicrous this conversation is. But guess how it gets amplified, right? Because the BJP controls large parts of our mainstream media, which is why people like you, Danish, and several people who do YouTubes today have greater credibility than many mainstream anchors, and that's a fact of life. Now, here is the challenge. You see, an average person is not a political junkie. He has to work all through the day, come home, spend time with the family, watch some television, listen to music, go to bed. Where do they get time to consume politics? And that is happening through television, which is completely prejudiced. And second is social media trolling. And third is WhatsApp forwards. So I think people of this country have got brainwashed to a large extent because they have never known how bad things are. Whether it is unemployment, whether it's inflation, whether it's electoral bond corruption, whether it was a migrants walking home. Can you imagine the migrants who died on the way? And come election, Mr. Modi still seems to be winning. I mean, a person who hasn't been to Manipur, despite horrific riots in Manipur, and Manipur is still, by the way, simmering, Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, hasn't been there. And he's still popular. To me, these things are absolutely confounding. It's like a conundrum. Just like you asked the question, I don't think anybody in this country has an answer. More than 150 people dead, over thousands homeless in Manipur, a woman gang raped in public, and the Prime Minister doesn't have time to go to that state in the Northeast.
And
it tells
you talk in detail about Manipur in the book as well.
Yeah.
There is a separate chapter on it.
Yeah. I've done that. I'll tell you why. Because, frankly, there are a couple of situations where, I'm surprised how anybody can vote for the BJP or Mr. Modi. After Manipur, after the way Bilkis Banu's rapists were released. I mean, India was talking about celebrating a 75th anniversary of the independence. The campaign of the BJP was Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And on that August 15th, you released the rapists of Bilkis Banu, who was gang raped, whose child was killed. I mean, how could you do that?
Mr. Jha, I must ask you this thing. You have been pointing fingers towards Gujarat genocide 2002.
Yeah.
Consistently since 2014. I have been following you, watching your shows on the News Hour debate. On every platform, you have been talking about Gujarat riots 2002. My simple question, aren't you afraid of ED raids?
I can tell you something, think about it, Danish, what a state of affairs we have in our country, right? If you speak the truth, if you question the government, we all are told, pipe down, quieten down, or somebody's going to come knocking at your door. And I think that's a tragedy of Indian politics. What I told myself, that, we are very privileged to have been, getting good education, to have worked in companies, And I felt there was a time when you need to give back. And therefore, Danish, frankly, I have not shifted political parties even when I had some differences with the Congress, because I feel the BJP is fundamentally, as a political party, ideologically against the idea of India, because it is not liberal, it is not secular, it is not tolerant, forget being progressive, it is not inclusive. And I felt that the BJP needs to be challenged. And one of the reasons why I actually had differences with the Congress was because I felt the Congress party was not fighting hard enough. I have no fear of the ED, CBI, or income tax. In fact, we fully are aware that they are capable of doing anything. But, when we come to the bridge, we'll cross it, but we'll fight it tooth and nail.
Coming back to your book, chapter 8 and chapter 9, you talk about the elephant in the room, that is Congress and Rahul Gandhi. And you write in the book that Rahul Gandhi is not accessible to anyone. There are many assertions about his inner circle. Many say that that inner circle is funded by BJP to keep Rahul Gandhi out of loop from the public and from the party leaders. Are these assertions right?
No, absolutely wrong. That's a completely preposterous hypothesis. I think Rahul Gandhi has every right, by the way, to have people who are close to him, because every leader, every individual actually has few friends you can really trust, which is fine. I think the mistake is the fact that maybe there was a period between 2014 to 2017-18 where Rahul actually went into a cocoon. Yeah, I think he probably took the defeat of 2014 far too seriously and extremely personally. He shouldn't have, because it was a defeat of an organization. It was a defeat of a political party. Now, he may have been forced into becoming the campaigner in chief in 2014, but I don't think he had to take the blame for it entirely. I think that period is where the Congress really lost the plot. Because if you look at it, Danish, between 2014 to 17, until in the Gujarat elections, the Congress did well and he became the Congress president thereafter, the Congress had been more or less in a limbo, not visible enough, not taking up issues. And I think the coteries mistake has been that they have not been able to make Rahul meet people whom he should be meeting. I come from the school of thought, Danish, that if you're a leader, you need to listen to the bad news first. The good news is there. Okay, fine, celebrate that. But that's, tomorrow is a new day, right? So you need to surround yourself with people who come and tell you, boss, this is not working. I think we are struggling here. We need to worry about the leaders who are, on the borderline. We have a problem. Our communication strategy is not working. We need to raise money. I don't think you as a leader are doing, as much as you should. If you don't have these conversations, the party will become weak. And I think that's where maybe his coterie should have done a much better job.
Mr. Jha, if I am not wrong, if I remember it correctly, in the last book, 2014 book, you have written that in 2017 you gave a presentation to Rahul Gandhi. And now in this book, you have mentioned that you gave him a presentation in 2019, before 2019 elections. Has there been any move forward on those two presentations?
That is, I'm glad I actually mentioned that, because the truth is that I was prepared with a very detailed document. It looked like vote shares. It was like any document that a strategist would give to a party that he's part of, and talk about where are the fault lines. And I felt Rahul had to see it, because, it had some very critical aspects, including there was input for him in terms of how he should get his communication right. Amongst the 2 points that I had there was that, he needed to invest a lot more in Hindi, because in the Hindi heartland, and even in the non-Hindi heartland, any leader who speaks Hindi with confidence or, has got a good command over the language is seen as a good leader. जो हिंदी सही तरीके से बोलता है, लोगों को लगता है कि यार ये राजनेता है. This is the perception. अब इसमें आप चाहे जो भी कह लें, लोगों का नजरिया जो है इसी तरह तय होता है. So I wanted him to focus a lot more on Hindi, and I also told him, forget this fear of media. Just go out there and give interviews left, right, and center. You will make mistakes. You'll only get better with time. And politics is a long-term game, right? So, end of day, you got to move on. Especially with Narendra Modi not giving a single press conference in 10 years, I felt Rahul had to leverage the media even if they were hostile to you. So, there were a lot of other inputs on data and, campaign, etc. But as I've written in the book, nobody allowed me to make that presentation to him directly. And this is from a person who once upon a time was in conversation with Rahul practically, every day in the first couple of years, maybe first term, Rahul and I would chat so often. So I do believe that, the coterie came into play effectively after 2014 when the chips were down, and they cut Rahul from a lot of inputs that he needed to hear. I don't think Rahul comes from a good place, but the people around him are more insecure.
Prashant Kishore, your good friend, if I'm not wrong, had also given a presentation to the Congress High Command, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul, and Priyanka, including other leaders, for at least, I guess, 3 to 4 days. And again, on this, there has been no forward moment.
First let me clarify, Prashant is not a friend. Prashant is someone, I think we both know each other through our public, public interactions. I think I have a huge amount of respect for what he brings to the table. He has got a very sharp sixth sense. There's no denying that. I personally felt that Prashant should have been incorporated into the Congress organization. Yes, he must have made some stiff demands.
Many do feel the same, that he must be part of Congress to strategize.
Yeah, absolutely. And here was a man who was volunteering to come to you after a failed experience in JDU, and someone who was very open about the fact that, yes, he had worked with different political parties, but he wanted to park himself with the Congress. So ideologically, and if you read his interviews, his father apparently was a hardcore Congressee as well. So I do feel that Congress probably missed the story there.
The problem believes on the Gandhian philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.
For years and not have a political party, expect no gains. I mean, clearly he's investing into the future. At some point, he will be a political heavyweight. I'm very sure of that. But the point is, the Congress needed him because I think the perception for the Congress would have changed. And I think people like Prashant Kishore and, even within the party, people like me, we call a spade, we call a shovel. I believe that if I don't know what I need to improve on, how will I get better? It's like playing a game of tennis or being a cricketer. You need a coach. Why do you need a coach? Even Tendulkar had to listen to a coach after scoring so many centuries because he points out a flaw. We are not the same every time. We keep changing. Sometimes we improve. Sometimes we become lazy. Sometimes we are complacent. Sometimes we regress. So I think Prashant would have been a wonderful
addition to the party.
Gatekeeper for the Congress. Yeah.
Importantly, on the theoretical side of the things, in the same chapter, which is chapter 9, you mentioned about the middle class, and you say the Indian middle class was basically the Congress construct. Where did things go wrong? You also criticize the Congress party for not catering to this vote bank. So how can the Congress party mend its way and get this middle vote bank, middle society vote bank gets going?
I think once again, these are what I call as strategic blunders. The Congress party created, in my opinion, the middle class of India. Post the 1991 liberalization, satellite television, Coke, Tommy Hilfiger, the whole multiplex.
But it's a gone thing now. How can Congress party get back into this middle class?
Well, I can tell you where the Congress party made the mistake. The mistake it made was in assuming that the middle class will remain with you because you have done them good and given them a higher level of income and quality of life. But the middle class all over the world, historically and socially, is an aspirational class. So a person who buys a small car, a Maruti car, wants to buy a mini SUV. He wants to graduate from buying a motorcycle into buying a four-wheeler. And when he buys a four-wheeler, he wants to buy a Jeep. When he buys a Jeep, he wants to buy a bigger vehicle. Why not? And, wants to go abroad. He's tired of going to the Goas and, the Keralas of the world. They want to say, I want to go abroad. That's a big status symbol and, of course, a new experience. I felt the Congress party stopped having a conversation with the middle class. Now, I believe India is a very complex society, Danish. You have poverty, you have farmers, you have neo-middle class, you have the Dalits, you have the scheduled tribes, you have you have people across different income streams. But the middle class is in a great number of ways a manifestation of the country's economic trajectory. The Congress built this entire universe of mobile phones, multiplexes, and the whole culture of people suddenly beginning to feel I'm arriving, I'm confident. But by giving the impression that we are only going to look at the people who are disadvantaged or disempowered, while it is very important in my opinion, India is not an either or country. India is not about being pro-poor or pro-rich. You have to be pro-everybody. You need to support industry and business without giving the fear of tax terrorism like Modi's government is doing. You need to back the middle class. You need to give farmers support. You need to make sure that the unemployed are getting jobs. And yes, you have to remove poverty. So India has to be balanced in a mixed economy model. You need to create transparency and more support for industry and business and even multinationals. And at the same time, you need to reduce income inequality. You need to boost small businesses. You need to help farmers, and you need to boost MSMEs, and of course, remove poverty. Congress gave the impression that it is anti-industry.
But I think Congress have answers for all these questions that you have raised. The thing is, it doesn't trickle down. It doesn't go to the people, and the Congress party is unable to tell it to the people that we have solution for all these problems. And I blame media. Yeah. And I think media has a part here to play in this, taking Congress's thing to the people.
I think that is the critical question that you've asked. If you look at the guarantees that the Congress has come up with for this election, they're fantastic. MSP for farmers, the right to apprenticeship, giving the graduates and diploma holders, 1 lakh in the first year, also giving the oldest woman in a family rupees 1 lakh a year. And I think all these are steps in the right direction. There is no denying that. You're raising the national minimum wage, giving Manrega at rupees 400. The Congress has got the story absolutely right in this manifesto. I believe this manifesto can be a model for Indian governance, including, of course, talking about decriminalizing, defamation, etc. The question is, can the Congress get this message to each and every household in this country? If it can, and I think it is trying to do that now, you still have a story in the 2024 elections.
But media isn't playing its role. How can Congress take this manifesto to a common man without the help of the media?
Daanish, here I have a point of view. The media for the last 10 years has it's literally become the cheerleader, like you see in IPL match. Every time Modi says something, everybody starts dancing, right? It's really like the Congress has to assume big media does not exist. Okay. Now, how are you going to win an election? You get what I'm saying? If the big media has not been on your side for the first 10 years, they will probably get progressively worse if Mr. Modi wins now. Can you imagine if Mr. Modi and the BJP win 2024? Big media will literally blank out the Congress and the entire opposition. They'll say, we don't care for you. You're irrelevant. People don't want you. And anyway, we have to support this government for the next 5 years. By that logic, how are you ever going to win? Are you getting my point? The institutions are against you. Election Commission is against you. ED, CBI, income tax are being abused. The big media is against you at various levels. The lower levels of judiciary have been given ridiculous judgments in the past. If you look at entire ecosystem, even the bureaucrats, you might have read about how the ambassador in Ireland has responded like a politician to an article that criticized Modi's government. So I'm saying this is an environment it is given. Now, how are you going to win? So you have to do more padiyatras, you have to do low-cost door-to-door knocking, you have to work harder, you have to use social media, and you have to make sure that every time you speak, you are being heard. So you have to win.
But you are saying that you have to go to door, you have to meet people, you have to be there on ground. But if you go to AICC headquarters in New Delhi, it's simply like that old traditional office. वो बाबू बैठे हैं अंदर, उनके बाहर संतरी बैठा है. He is allowed to meet people. I think Congress doesn't need to get back to power, because if you go to AICC, it simply operates like another PMO there.
Daanish, these are the things the Congress party will have to change in. You see, I can tell you that today the BJP is winning because it is organized. You see, it runs this campaign like a corporate business plan. I will go here, then at that time, the social media will happen. At this time, I will give a speech. It should merge with something else happening in the ecosystem so that I'm able to reach your consumer, reach my target voter. Now, look at one interesting thing. Can you imagine? I mean, of course, the BJP is like a fascist model they are following. Have you seen the number of movies that Bollywood has produced, which is based on biopics?
And you have also mentioned another chapter on that in the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have tried to incorporate and include everything of relevance. And I can tell you, majority of the people of the Congress have not bothered to read the book, which they should have, but they won't. This is the problem with the Congress. If you look at the BJP, there's a movie on Savarkar. There's a movie on Atal Bihari Vajpayee. There's a movie on Article 370. Now an actor who's a candidate is going to act as Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Can you imagine? But you see, what they are trying to do is what I call is brainwash the people. I'll give you an example. Why does Narendra Modi say 307, 370 and 400 par? This is not confidence. It is not arrogance. It is basically called gaslighting. You see, if you begin to tell the people कि हमको 370 और 400 मिल ही रहा है, a vast majority of voters begin to say, यार ये तो जीत ही रहा है लगता है. And you see, majority of Indian voters don't make up their mind about who to vote for till the last few days of the election. People are not hardcore BJP or hardcore non-BJP opposition or Congress. So end of day, the idea is to influence this floating voter, which is the biggest segment in India, and tell them, yaar, I'm the front runner. So if you're voting, don't waste your vote. So, these guys are past masters at propaganda. It is a model of, frankly, the famous Goebbels that we all talk about. And that's a Goebbels model. Brainwash, repeat a lie again and again. And therefore, I feel the opposition missed a trick. To defeat somebody in that game, you need to not play the same game. You need to change the rules of the game. And if the Congress had perhaps gone more retail, more household, more nukkar, हर नुक्कर पे जाइए, आप हर गली में जाके छोटे-छोटे आप, I'll give you one example. A Rahul Gandhi and a Priyanka Gandhi, instead of doing a big rally where 10,000 people come or 50,000 people come, imagine कि आप किसी छोटे से गांव के एक छोटे से चौराहे पे बैठ के आप चाय पीते हुए 200 लोगों के साथ बात कीजिए, आप वो 200 वोटर्स में से 150 आपको वोट कर लेंगे. और रैली में आप 10,000 को बुलाइए, उसमें से कोई गारंटी नहीं है कि कितने आपके साथ आएंगे. So you need to change the whole dynamics of campaigning.
In the book, you also mentioned about TMC, Trinamool Congress. Do you believe or do you feel that they are going to take Congress on a national level soon?
Well, I think Prashant Kishore's model, along with Mamata Banerjee, was to make the TMC the new Congress because the Congress was struggling. And they tried in Goa to, do better than the Congress and then go to the countryside and say, we will fight to protect the Congress ideology. And the Congress is basically failing in protecting India's democracy and the constitution, which was like, they have a right to be ambitious. It didn't work out for them. But I do believe that now the TMC is reconciled to being a formidable power in West Bengal and the Northeast. And they might want to increase their footprint, but I think everybody is kind of adjusted to the reality that the Congress party is the, shall we say, the bulwark or the linchpin of an opposition alliance, the fulcrum, so to say. And I think that has practically been accepted.
Mr. Jha, my last few questions before I wind up this, because we have already gone over 30 minutes. My last few questions. There is also a chapter in the book on Muslims, and you have written about the state of Muslims. What future do you see of Muslims in India?
I want to just, tell you, Daanish, that India will remain a secular country. India at core remains a society which is multicultural and multi-plural. An average person in India wants love, affection, companionship, a syncretic culture of oneness. Yes, we have a political party in power that is inspired by the successful British policy of divide and rule and implements that with ruthlessness to keep India religiously polarized.
But
I'm very
do you guarantee this secularism after 2024 to the minorities of the country if BJP comes to power?
I guarantee that the opposition will fight tooth and nail. And more important, India's civil society, the common people of India are not going to allow the BJP's
Mr. Jha, some reality check on this. CAA, after the notification of CAA, Rahul Gandhi, the Congress party, Priyanka Gandhi, all the three have been silent, not a single statement on CAA. The civil society you are talking about, we have seen what has happened in the Bhima Koregaon, all the 16 have been put behind bars. So I don't feel that this argument is right, that you are saying that civil society, the Congress party will be behind minorities.
Danish, can I add a point here? Remember this, the government has been forced to take the NRC out, which they were actually trying to very stealthily do along with the CAA. Now the CAA is being challenged in the Supreme
only
Court.
Their manifesto.
I know, I agree with you there, but let me add a point. The CAA is still up in the Supreme Court, and we should keep our fingers crossed and hope, because a lot of people who have studied the CAA, including myself, believe that it violates what we call as the basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, there's an element of religion into refugees, which is blatantly unfair, and it targets one particular community. So I think this matter is still up in the air. But promise you this, Danish, that I think this is a great country, and I think all of us here are going to collectively fight to make sure that not a single individual in this country is made to feel like a second-rate citizen.
And we do hope that the country remains the same. No one is a second-class citizen in this country. My last question before we end up this discussion. Who is winning 2024 elections?
My bet is that the BJP is not getting a majority on its own. The India Alliance will be able to stop the BJP juggernaut. I think all the hype through opinion polls and through Mr. Modi's and Mr. Shah's 370 and 400 is not going to work. I think the expose on electoral bonds and corruption, crony capitalism, mafioso culture, criminality, unemployment, and inflation are two big issues that have hurt the common man, Danish. And I think the reason why the BJP is today in a state of panic is because they thought that after the Pran Pratishtha of January 22nd, this election was done and dusted. It is not. It's up in the air. The common man today is feeling aggrieved. The middle class has been devastated, and Indian business and industry has recognized that they have been terrorized into coughing up money, and they live in fear. The women, I mean, look at the champion women wrestlers of India who were actually insulted when they were in the streets of Delhi making accusations against a BJP MP of sexual harassment, and the government was quiet. You think people haven't observed all that? I think there is an undercurrent. There is a silent voter, and I'm hoping against hope that the India Alliance triumphs and we are going back to the world of democracy and freedom.
Mr. Jha, I do hope that your analysis proves to be right. Let me hold your book once again for the viewers so that it reaches more people and maximum people read it, especially the Congress leadership and other Congress leaders. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you, Danish. It's been a pleasure.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.